your spirit ground.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Warm Embers. On this episode, we have Camaray. Cami, what do you like to go by?
Ooh, I whatever you feel. I go by both. I go by all
Okay,
of
okay. So, the amazing, beautiful, talented Camaray, and do you want to go into your background, who you are, who your people are, and I'm just excited to be on this interview with you.
Aw, you're so sweet. No, I'm stoked to meet you, Yam. Notun Camaray Davalos, Yaka. Hello everyone. My name is Camaray Davalos. I am Payómkawichum from the Pachanga band of Indians. I'm also Xicana, Irish, Cuban, Mexican, Jewish. So mixed. Um, but yes.
That's so awesome. So I met Camaray at a conference and she was still in school. You went to Berkeley, didn't you? Or
Humboldt State.
Humboldt. Yes,
Yes.
yes,
But
yes.
my
So,
cousin, people, there's a lot of people in Berkeley too, yeah.
so what did you study in Humboldt?
I was a Native American Studies major and
Ooh.
I minored in environmental management and planning.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I loved being at Humboldt. It was, just the Native community up there is so just so great, so welcoming. And I don't know, we're still all so close today, and yeah, I'll never forget it.
That's so cool. I know they have so many cool programs up in the northern universities with the local natives. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, there's the ITEP program or the ITEP house on campus, which is like we were all just meeting there all the time, like in between classes, after school. Like I've never done so much in my life up there because we were like, like studying, doing work, but then also we did like a lot of demonstrations and a lot of outreach and a lot of like there are potlucks and like programmings to help with. Were you at the California Indian Conference up there? Is that maybe what you're
No,
um
I don't remember why we were there. It was probably maybe a EPA conference in San Francisco or something. I don't know.
okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, so Humboldt State, Cal Poly Humboldt now, but I don't know how it is now, but back then when I was in school there in 2018-ish, yeah, they just have so much, I guess, programming and activities and thing for Indigenous students. So it's one of those schools that I recommend if you're a native to
Hmm.
go to and just like to feel that sense of community. And yeah, great school.
Yeah, that's a beautiful experience. I went to a native school in outside of Davis, and I don't know if it's open anymore, but it was
Wait,
like an
what's it
old
called?
DQ University.
I think I stayed there during the run for salmon or walk for salmon
Okay.
thing. I don't know if you've heard of that, but we stayed in like the dorm rooms there for a couple days. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that experience because it was mostly natives and from
Mhm.
all over. Some people from like back east, some from inner city, and they had never seen rabbits in the wild.
Whoa. Oh.
I know, and they were like ex gang members, but they were native and they were part of their family was like the Relocation Act, and so they wanted to get back in touch with the culture, and it was just so beautiful to see them transform from like these hardened like tough gangsters to like at the end they were just like I love everyone and I'm so glad I'm here, you know? It was
Look at
just so
that rabbit over
beautiful.
there. It's so cute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like no,
I-
I love that.
yeah.
It's so important to have those spaces, honestly. And I love when people get to be softies and get to, find some vulnerability. So
Yes, that's so important, especially right now in this time of like upheaval and just the awfulness that's going on.
oh
But
my
that
gosh,
we are
girl. No,
able.
seriously, no, and I just tangent. I just so finished this show on Netflix called Adolescence. I don't know if you've
Oh,
watched.
no.
it's just wild, and it's just exploring like how scary the internet is, especially for like young boys and young men, and just like the stuff that gets into their minds about like this misogyny, and how like I don't know, it's like 80% of women are attracted to 20% of men, and it's just like it's incels, you know, and it's just
Uh-huh.
it makes me so scared to like have a kid, or I don't know, in this world. It's yeah.
I know it sounds so scary that these messages are able to weed through, but I think really the importance is having the connection with your children to have those dialogue. And
Yeah.
we were talking earlier that I grew up with instability, and I think if without proper support, I definitely would have become another statistic. But I
Mhm.
think it's just that lack of community, people
Mhm.
watching out, like the young girl who was murdered in Arizona. But she was really a foster child, and from what I understand, got like moved around and stuff. And
Mhm.
it's so sad that she didn't realize, like after her death, the amount of support, grief, outcry from the public. But if she
Yeah.
had had that prior,
Yeah.
maybe she wouldn't have been in that situation. So
Things
I
could have
think,
been different. Yeah, and I hear you, and I think I could have been a statistic too. I don't know if like I mean like one of our short films that we made, Woman Who Blooms at Night, is partially based on my experience of domestic abuse
oh
with an
yeah,
ex when I was it was like, a 3, 4 year long relationship, and it was scary, and I was isolated, and I wasn't like I feel like I'm fortunate to have like a supportive family, and but like I was so young and naive and immature. I just thought that this boyfriend, this was my life, and then he isolated me, and I was just, experienced the like physical, emotional abuse, and it's scary because not everyone is able to get away, and I don't blame or judge anyone for not
yeah.
being able to like
Mhm.
that's real, so
Yeah, but I think the key you're saying is like the family support, the community to come and give.
100%.
Yeah. I definitely want to watch your film. I think that's so amazing. That you have your poetry book and then you have the film. So I mean, so let's dive into your anthology. How
Okay.
did you come up with the idea to create your poetry book?
Yeah, well, actually, it was inspired by my time in Humboldt,
Okay.
being a Native Studies major, and just we're reading a lot of books, a lot of materials from Native people all around the country, and there wasn't too much we were reading from like Southern California natives
Mm,
specifically, and I know that wasn't anything personal from my professors, because they were amazing. The reality is there's just not a lot of our texts or our books or media really out there. And so,
yes.
yeah, when I graduated, we have Great Oak Press, which is Pachonga's in-house um, publishing company. And so, yeah, I came to them and to my two cousins, Avelica and Rebecca, with this idea of putting together this anthology with our women and femmes stories and artwork,
Uh-huh.
just so people get to know us, I'm a writer, in general. I like to write poetry,
Oh,
screenplays, short stories, anything. So that was really important for me and for us to find, our own writers from our own communities and our own artists, and yeah.
I think it is just so dynamic. When I saw it, I was like, yes, because my children are enrolled in La Jolla, so they're California native, my husband, my in-laws, and when I moved out here, I was coming from Navajo Nation, where we're like steeped in culture, but coming here, I would ask questions like about culture and tradition. And I realized that colonization, because it had been here much longer than Navajo Nation, there really weren't as many people practicing. People knew, some people, certain people knew, but then it was like up to the families kind of thing, which totally understand. Like my grandparents raised us to be good Christians, so we knew culture as not as a religion, but just kind of a lifestyle, I guess. But so when I came out here, I would ask questions, and a lot of it just was from colonization, oppression, and the fact that where we are today, I'm just loving like the fact that you're storytelling, and people know the name like Payómkawichum, and when I see it, I'm just like, oh my God, that's so awesome. Or even in Los Angeles, where people are like identifying this is Tongvaland. It's
Mhm.
like, yes, this is so good,
I know, I love it so much. And something you said about like we did kind of get that first wave of colonization and the mission
Uh-huh.
systems and and then our people too, I'm sure you've noticed, we're so private with our
Yes.
culture and the things we share. It's very much like don't take photos, and if you do, don't post them on social media or anything, which is very different from like what I've seen other, indigenous folks and nations say. And it's like it's so hard because I understand, where that privacy, that need for privacy comes from, because so much isn't being practiced right now, and it's like we need to hold on to what we have, and it is a bummer though at the same time because it's like I would love for the rest of the world or just like other native communities to, see what we do. But I guess that's something that's like you got to be here in person to experience.
Yeah.
But oh, what I was gonna say too is part of Yáamay, Yáamay's why we thought it was so important was because, to educate the non-native public who don't think we're here anymore, that's a huge reason. And another thing that, is a reality is, I've heard other native people say that California natives don't have culture, which is that's really hurtful, to hear, and it's not true. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of like it's for Native people in that sense too, and also just for what we were talking about earlier, um, to inspire other Native people to to show them that when they're reading a poem in Yáamay, speaking to I don't know, addiction or something, and just like family addiction, and just knowing that maybe they're not alone or that someone else has also, experienced this, and you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Yes, that there is a type, somebody has also walked this pathway that they are also walking. And how
100%.
do they go find a way out or a light? I think
Mhm.
that's so beautiful. I purchased so many copies of your book because I love giving them to my family members.
Oh,
I'm
you're
just like,
so
here.
sweet. I love to hear it.
The aesthetic on it, the design too. Did you do that?
So that was the our format, our layout designers, Alexis Manoa Dyer, who's
Okay.
also a contributor in Yáamay and a Pechanga tribal member, and then her husband Andrew. They both worked on that. But that was something that, us as editors also worked so closely on because we wanted this book to feel like a piece of art. You know what I mean? You're
Hmm.
like carrying it around, and like the matte soft cover was also very by design.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
very, we're very interested in the textures and the colors of our land that we, come from.
Uh-huh.
And so that's why you see a lot of these like, creamy, dreamy, like orange and browns, like this rustic sort of palette that, reflects the buckwheat that is all
Uh-huh.
us, and like the sand and the dirt that is around us, the clay. And there's also this like scrapbook kind of feel to it. I don't know if you
Yes.
noticed, like,
Uh-huh.
sure you have.
Yeah.
Which is very like, it's like we're putting together all of these pieces and parts of what it means to be a Southern California Indigenous person. And there's, we contain multitudes. We're
Uh-huh.
all so different and the same,
Uh-huh.
and so I think we also wanted the layout to reflect that. And then of course you'll see, just little bits and pieces on the pages, like the leaves of an oak tree, which
Uh-huh.
is so important to us, or like the islands, like the Catalina, like our sacred islands. It's kind of like, if you know, you know.
Uh-huh. Because
Mm.
yes, it's you guys are speaking within each other to each other, but
Yes.
it's so beautiful. If you're listening, go get a copy of this book because it is a piece of art. And then the heart and the soul that you guys put into it with the words, it's just phenomenal. I'm just
Oh,
like
no Shunlovik. That's seriously, that means a lot. Thank you.
it's definitely a piece of Indigenous excellence. And yes, because I was speaking with another interviewee and we were discussing creating how we create our art in the world. Like your book is your art in the world, and that a lot of times when we start, a lot of I've noticed a lot of crafters and earring makers, they kind of have a standard, but then when we're able to take it up to another level, I think that showcases our artistry in another way to where we need to be give ourselves permission to be like, you don't have to just, um like do the best you can, but actually take time and be the best, you know? And I think your book really reflects that to say you guys took time and it's like not doing the best you can, but actually putting together and, showing your best.
Yeah, no, 100%. And as far as I know, this is the first anthology for Southern California Indigenous women and femmes. And correct me if I'm wrong, world. No, but so that's why also, it was very much, there was a high standard for this. This is representing certainly not all of us, unfortunately. We try. I was in DF, oh my gosh. I was in people's like Instagram DMs trying to
Uh-huh.
like Tataviam, Serrano people, because we didn't get submissions from any of them, and I wanted to make sure they were represented, but maybe next edition.
Yes, next edition.
But yeah, but so that's why it's like, what if this is the only time we get to do this? And if it is, then we better do it well and, just represent who we are in an authentic way. And yeah, very important.
It definitely reflects it. I'm pretty sure it probably is the first one, because I
Yeah.
haven't seen or heard I mean because like there's the poet Joy Harjo. Oh, and then the Afro-Indigenous author that she's my friend and I also interviewed her. She's releasing Soul Food and Sweetgrass
I saw,
because
yeah.
she said that she could only find five other Afro-Indigenous books in general, not just poetry, but just books. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys are doing the first.
I'm not surprised, but it's just, yeah, you know what? That's why these things are just so monumental, and we just gotta, do what we can. So,
Yes, take up that space, create it.
mhm.
Yeah, so awesome. Okay, so did you guys have like a mood board for this or like,
We totally had a Pinterest, and there's like, I put like a basket. One of the baskets I was weaving at the time is on there. There's some like I don't know, Georgia O'Keeffe paintings. There's like
ooh,
just like, there's a lot of, oh gosh, what's it called? When it's like you have a photo and then you like imprint another photo on top of it, and it's kind
uh-huh.
of like, gosh, I can't remember the term right now. A lot of imagery like that, just a lot of like sand and like natural like native plants like yucca.
Hmm.
tarot cards were on
Ooh,
there. So all kinds of little goodies
yeah,
that
it's
inspired
so
us.
yeah, I can't talk enough about this because it's like
Mhm.
hitting all my little things because I love everything like native plants because working in environmental, I just love they provide for us relatives, we're able to process them. When people look out on the Southern California escape, they probably see nothing. But
Yeah.
then from what I've learned, there's like food, there's textiles, there's all kinds of stuff out there.
And like California, I think has the highest biodiversity in the out of all the states, like
Uh-huh.
we have so much beauty and just so much life around us. And I don't know if I'm sure you noticed, but the chapter titles also were inspired by life cycles of plants. So like Tola is root. That's the first chapter, and then
Uh-huh.
Coop means like asleep or dormancy, when like a seed is dormant underneath, but it's not
Yeah.
dead, that's the point we wanted to drive home because in that chapter, it's pieces that speak to the traumas of colonization and abuse, addiction, the hard stuff. So we wanted to, make the point that our culture and our ways, they're not dead. They're just asleep for now.
Yeah.
And then so the next chapter is Woolnish, which is to cultivate, to grow. And then the final chapter is Sho'a, which is to bloom. And that's when we're like,
Oh,
the pieces are exploring like us, feeling ourselves in our indigeneity and reconnecting with culture and with ourselves. And yeah.
oh my gosh, I did not even notice that, but I freaking am amazed by that. I'm blown away. I'm shocked. I'm just like, because in our number one culture, we know that life goes in seasons. And then in spirituality, because I like to also research a lot of like spiritualist stuff, and you have what is it, the maid, the
Oh, the crone.
yeah, there's three of them.
Maiden, mother, crone? Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yes.
Okay,
But to
yeah.
me, that's also life cycles, right? And
Hmm.
that the book just is laying that out for us to say, like you said, these different reflections of seasons of life.
Hmm.
And even in building businesses, it's the same way, right? Like you have your moment where you put the seeds down, like you're spending money, and then you're waiting for it to come back, and then you don't see anything. And then you wait, it might be a long time, but you're still like, is this gonna happen or not? And
Yeah.
then, you start to see a little bit of growth, and you still have to water and
Cultivate.
yes,
Yeah.
and then you
Mhm.
get the bloom, hopefully.
So real. And yeah, and it's just oof, it can be a slow process. And that's what I'm trying to remind myself too on my own journey. I'm just
Uh-huh.
like, I'm impatient sometimes, so not gonna lie, but
I'm right there with you. Well, I think it's because to me, I feel like American culture, I think about this a lot because um how we've grown up in two worlds to where one, it's like as a native person, we're taught that there's these seasons and that we like pay attention to our elders and we spend time with our kids and we really like pour into our family and community. But then you have American culture, which is like American individualism, like pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and you see these stories that seem like they're overnight successes, and you see like this push for hurry up and make money and be flashy, and it's like so they're kind of like these two dualities that we're like in our mind we've been taught that we're trying to like work through, where this yeah.
it's so hard, dude, to like deprogram that because like I struggle with that. That just that sense of urgency to like, if you don't publish something by the age blah blah blah, you're like,
Uh-huh.
a failure or it doesn't count or I don't know, like
Yes.
all kinds of things eating at us and it's just I'm there with you just trying to
No,
Unlearn.
yeah. It is, it's very interesting that we want it to be like, okay, even my podcast, like, okay, put this out. Let's see. Hopefully, like I get 1,000 people watching, and it just takes time
Mhm.
because one of my favorite podcasts, they said it took them 8 years to build where they were, which I hope it's not 8 years, but still.
Yeah, but the thing is, they kept going. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Even though, no matter how long it took, and that's my thing too. And maybe you'll relate as a Taurus.
Uh-huh.
I'm also a Taurus. We just, you know what I mean? Just keeping at it, and no matter what, there's so many. You know, I've got so many rejections lately, even with like my writing, and that sucks, but it's just,
Uh-huh.
it is what it is. And I always forget, and I have to remind myself of, the yeses and the positivity, and you know what I mean, that I
Yeah.
have received, and not even just like material, I guess, success, but just like the love that and the community I have from people all around me. I think sometimes we I forget that sometimes, and it's
No,
just
for
so
real.
it's so simple, you know what I mean? But it's so much more meaningful at the end of the day. So yeah.
Yes, I'm right there with you. Sometimes I have a meltdown. I'm like, and then it's like, no, like take a deep breath, touch your fingers, like you have everything you need. Just relax, just wait, be patient, like you said,
So
even though it's
real.
hard.
So real. So real. Do you know, tangent, real quick?
Okay.
Do you know, because I know you're a Taurus, do you know any of your other, like your moon, your rising sign, or anything like that?
No, I wish I did. I reached out to get my birth certificate from the Shiprock Hospital, and of course they were like, "Oh, we don't have that information. I'd have to write a letter, and then they would have to go to some storage unit, and they're like, we don't know if we have that." And I was like, "Oh my," because I ordered my birth certificate and it didn't have it on there. And then I asked
Oh,
my aunt because she would have known. Um,
yeah.
but she's like, I don't know. I think it was in the morning. I was like, dang it. But you can, I think, do like midnight of that day.
Yeah, you can like, I mean, if it's morning, it's like 9 in the morning or something, and like it'll at least you'll at least know like your Mercury, your Venus, and your Mars signs, because those are very slow moving planets. So like
Uh-huh.
those don't change very quickly. Like they're not really dependent on your birth time as much, as like your moon sign and your rising sign. So just let me know.
Yeah. What is yours?
I'm a so Taurus sun, Pisces moon,
Ooh,
Aquarius rising.
okay.
Yeah, just I could go on, but I just
No, I love that so much because my daughter really studies astrology too. And I just love it. Yeah, me too. I want to create a set of
tarot card
positivity,
of
kind of
what?
tarot cards, but positive where you pull it and it has like a
Oh,
message.
like an oracle deck.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
I kind of want to work on that. So when you were reaching out to all the authors and then trying to coordinate everything, that seems like such a large endeavor. Like, how did you manage? To me, that just seems like so overwhelming. Like, oh,
It was, yeah. So like, yeah, when we're reaching out to for submissions for Yáamay, it was definitely a mix of word of mouth, also just putting stuff out, announcements out on social media, like Facebook, Instagram.
uh-huh,
My cousin Henry runs this like he sends it out like every night. It's like a native like email thread with like all kinds of announcements and events coming up, and uh calls for submissions for things. So, we sent that there as well. But I think, like I was mentioning earlier, like I would even, go into people's DMs, because I was serious about making sure every nation was represented. And we got like a good amount of submissions, but to be honest, like it wasn't like we got tons and tons, like it was so overwhelming. Unfortunately, I wish it was like that, but I think it's something that's interesting, and I kind of talk about this in our introduction of Yáamay, like we're just sometimes I think as Native people, we're like unsure about submitting something or sharing parts of ourselves. And even I am sure, a lot of people struggle with this. It goes back to vulnerability and sometimes you're not ready to be vulnerable or because the thing is, once Yáamay was published, there was all kinds of people coming up to me like, I wish I submitted this or
Oh,
that. You know what I mean? I wish
yeah.
I Z and I don't know. I think maybe it's intimidating for folks, but like we just wanted, we want this to be something for everyone. And so yeah, next edition, we'll have more people, I'm sure. I hope.
Yes, yeah, definitely you will. It
Yeah.
is very much as an artist, sharing your work with the world is just the most scariest thing because that's part of you. It's like, this is my baby. Do you like it? No. It's like, no, go away.
Literally. Oh my gosh.
But that never happens. That never happens. As soon
Right,
as
because who would say your baby's like not cute? You know what I mean?
yes, but for the most part, when people share their artwork, they always get positive feedback. So
Mhm.
the people I've networked with. So,
Of
but
course.
yes.
Yeah.
So, how was Comic-Con? You guys had a panel?
Yeah, it was a panel last year. It was so actually Cheg Lowry, he's Yurok. He's a writer of like comics and books and he had a comic book or a graphic novel published with Great Oak Press called Soldiers Unknown.
Okay.
And it was actually his idea to put together this panel with Great Oak Press, with our editor Lauren, with him, and with myself and my fellow co-editors of
Uh-huh.
Yáamay, just to talk about, Great Oak Press is California's first Indigenous press, and to just talk about our experiences in working with the press and our publications and how, it's just a very different experience. For example, with Great Oak Press, I've talked to some native authors and writers who, when working with their publishers, there was pushback with using their native language in their books. Whereas with Great Oak Press, it was like encouraged, which
Uh-huh.
is different, and it feels like that should be the norm, but it's not. So, we talked about things like that on our panel, talking about even the little things of like, not italicizing indigenous words because it's like, we're normalizing them. We're not trying to
Yes.
words that have been here for millennia.
Yes.
Um, so it was just it was such a cool experience. Our room was filled, which was great. One of the founders of Comic-Con was there, seated in front.
Ooh.
Like that was neat to see. And there were native people, there who we got to talk to afterwards. They had, they had copies of, I think we were selling copies of the book there. So they must have bought a copy there and they were like coming up to us to sign it. And they were
Oh,
so excited and just genuinely so sweet. Like one of them actually, like, she's Anishinaabe
okay.
and she was actually there on a panel at Comic-Con the day before because she worked on a show, The Boys. I don't know if
Oh,
you heard.
yeah.
She was a costume designer for The Boy, like an Anishinaabe
No,
woman. And it was so cool. I was like, wow, we were like,
that
um,
is so cool.
yeah, so it was just really cool to we weren't realizing we were going to get that support, that kind of support from native and non-native folks at Comic-Con, and it was just really fun. It was, yeah.
That is just so I don't know. Like it's so like you say niche because the I like at Comic-Con, we used to go to Comic-Con when you could just walk right up and buy tickets. So we've
Yeah.
been going since the kids were little. And I don't ever remember seeing an Indigenous panel. And the fact that you guys were there was just like, oh my God, I love this. I would have
Dude,
loved
I'm
that.
like, no, for real. And like honestly, because I don't know, our panel topics were like just it's very different than what you usually see at Comic-Con. It's, it's very like comic,
Uh-huh.
uh, movie, TV show centric. And so I was a little unsure of, how receptive the public would be. Like, is this even interesting to folks, but like I said, that room was full, like pretty
Uh-huh.
full. So like I was surprised, pleasantly surprised. Yeah, it was
Yes.
great.
You know what? Now that I'm talking, like we're talking about this, I'm like, no, we should not be. We should be like, no, this is part of us taking American culture,
Literally
right?
what we were talking about earlier. Yeah, so it feels, you know what? Yeah, let's spread our wings a little bit and, you know, be comfortable in that space. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's so cool. Okay, so you were talking about filmmaking and people being there to promote their. So you made a film. Are you still making more and would you submit to like
Yeah, so my creative partner, her name is Cassie Kihoot. She's also Payómkawichum. She's our director for A Woman Who Blooms at Night. That was our first short film, well, my first short film. And then we collaborated again on actually a short that is going to be used in California public school curriculum.
yay?
I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but Yáamay actually we were approached by California educators like last year to use Yáamay in California public school curriculum in accordance with AB 167, which is their ethnic model studies curriculum.
Okay.
So there's a Native American unit, and then under that is a Native poetry unit. And so that's where we come in.
Ooh.
And so that's really exciting that like high school students are gonna get to know Yáamay and our women's voices a little bit more. But anyways, we made a short film for that. And
Uh-huh.
because, the idea behind that was like students, like high school students especially, are so visual, like everyone's into like TikTok and like these clips and stuff like that. So we were like, what if we created a short film, featuring some of our pieces that was like exciting and dynamic and that'll kind of hold their attention a little.
Yes.
So that was the latest short film we worked on, and we've submitted to some festivals. We'll see what happens. But yeah, and then we're also in the midst of working with a California Indigenous musician, trying to, plan out and get funding for a music video, which is different.
Yay.
I've never done that before, but I am very excited for that. And
Uh-huh. That is exciting. I mean, the getting into the school system, that is just going to like create this whole door of knowledge for people to be like, oh, I remember. And then again,
yes.
taking up the space, creating
Literally that. Yeah. And so I don't know, it's with everything going on right now with our current
oh
administration
my
stuff,
God.
it's I'm just like, we'll see. But California, it tends to be pretty good about, making space for our voices for
Uh-huh.
but yeah, so I think it'll be good, and I think it's going to be introduced this school year in the fall 2025. So we'll see. I'm interested to hear feedback of like people I know, in those
Yes.
stuff. So
That's exciting though. So with discussing visibility and taking up space, let's talk about like the importance of centering California natives and creating representation, which you are absolutely doing. But like, what is it? Blue sky dream. Like, what would you like to see?
let's see. I would love to see I love these exhibits popping up. Like I don't have you been to the Fowler Museum, the Fire Kinship exhibit?
No.
Um, that's up right now at the Fowler, including like amazing California Indigenous artists and cultural practitioners. You know, uh, and just they've got such good feedback that they actually are extending the exhibit, which
Ooh,
is really cool. And
yeah.
talking to other California Native people, like the youth are so, after going to that space, they're like so excited and they're so, it warms everyone's heart. And then it's like, oh, like, you know what I mean? You see a piece by
Uh-huh.
someone or like you're a relative, or maybe it's even your piece in there. And so all that to say, I think it would be cool to have more like spaces, like art spaces, exhibit spaces out here, just celebrating our work. And I that would be like one of my dreams is to be like a curator, honestly. Like
Ooh.
I want to curate exhibits with Southern California artists, and I just making more space for us, man. Like I think also we're kind of doing this. I don't know if you've also heard of Subversive Verses, which is a collective I just started with three other Kauai ladies. So we're trying to do it seasonally. We just had a spring event and then we're gearing up for our summer event, and um, it's like a curated open mic with California native poets and artists and musicians.
Ooh.
And so yeah, that's hopefully gonna, open up more opportunities and just, for us to be heard and just to hang out and chill with each other and connect.
Yes, I love that. You guys had a event in Encinitas, I think, right?
Yes, that was the one that
Okay.
was our very first one in Encinitas, and it was so great. And one of the things we've talked about was like, a lot of times, as poets or Indigenous people, when we're asked to do poetry or readings at like an institution, like a museum, um, a lot of the times they expect us to be Indigenous centric, like with what we're reciting, and which is great and necessary. Um, at the same time, with subversive verses events, it's kind of like it's open, and that's what, the feedback we heard is like, it's great to just be able to talk about whatever, like recite poetry about like my ex-boyfriend, or like my sexuality, or iced coffee, or you know what I mean? Just like random
Yes.
stuff.
Uh-huh.
But also, our indigeneity as well, or like being a woman or whatever, being a mother, anything you want to talk about.
Yes, but that again gives us relevancy and like, yes, see us through the lens of we are a people. We're not a monolith. We're not in the 1800s. So that's so perfect.
Yeah.
Have you heard or read the book or seen the poetry from Tanel Campbell, Native Love Notes or Love?
I've heard
She
of it. I haven't read it though.
So that was the first time I was introduced to like native spicy poetry because she would do like kind of semi-erotic um poetry, and it was so good. I'd highly recommend.
I
But
think I've
she
seen
wrote,
posts actually.
yes,
She talks about like choke cherry and like
yes,
yeah, I'm like, ooh, I'm here.
I know. She was so good. And then you guys had your book too, and I was just like, "Oh my God, I love this so much." Because I just love poetry. I've always been a big fan of poetry. I feel like it's such a beautiful form of expression. And um it's I saw this quote that said something about in with a callback to the administration we're living under, how important poetry is right now for people to express as a means of discussing your feelings and also as a protest of the conditions. And so how did you get into poetry?
Ooh, I'm like trying to think here. Shoot. I feel like w- one of my kind of earlier memories is actually like graduating, because yeah, I feel like I got more serious about poetry after I graduated from Humboldt, and like coming back home to the land, like it's so wild how different Humboldt is the terrain and everything from down here. It's redwood trees, it's green, it's lush, and down here it's brown and orange but beautiful at this, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
But coming back here and just being, I missed the land, and coming back here and being among it again and just gathering our plants and just like, you know what I mean, being outside again, it kind of just it inspired me a lot to just start writing. And some of my earliest pieces from that time are talking about the plants, especially like elderflower and nava, prickly pear cactus, and just yeah, just really getting into that again, I guess. It's just like, ooh, I missed you so,
Yeah,
let me write about how beautiful you are. And yeah, I think
I love that so much because it is like the genetic memory popping out. Because you've studied environmental. So one day I was sitting reading this article about how scientists were realizing that our histories are our genetic code, right? And the way they expressed this was they took I think they were ducks or geese, and they raised them in captivity, and then they released them and they monitored them, and they realized that they knew the migration route.
mm,
Nobody taught them. They weren't with other, and they were like, this is interesting. How did this happen? And then they started experimenting with different birds, raising them in captivity, which I don't know if they like snatched them from somewhere, but
where did they come?
yeah. And then they realized that it was their genetic code that they automatically knew where they're supposed to migrate. And then I was like, okay, so from the, again, American point of view, you say, well, those are beasts and we're people. But no, from our cultural lens, we know that everybody's relatives and that we're all connected, and that if they have that, we would have that too, right? Like our genetic memory, what feels good. Like when I light up the sage or the cedar, it just hits my nose. I was like all of these like sensors. It's like the genetics popping,
Yes.
that memory is just like you know.
It's so no, it's so real. And what the experiment or what you just shared reminds me of something else I've heard about seeing the colors around you of your land that you come from has been shown to, like, I think, reduce stress and like
Ooh.
promote like well-being, which I just, that's so real to me. That's so, and just going back to Yáamay, I think that's kind of what we did in a way. Like when you're opening these book and you see these colors that remind you of home, it's just like, peace. So,
Yes, it's calling you back. It's calling you back.
yes, I love it.
That is such a great segue to how do you, I love your posts. I love your aesthetic, just your being. So how do you practice living grounded and in a present life? Because you definitely see beauty in everything. So
Oh yeah, no, I try. Like I'm looking out my window right now and I just see the hillside and just like all these rocks everywhere and a big old oak tree, and just I try to go outside when I can. And one of my favorite things lately has been, I just discovered, actually, it's right outside our house. There's like yerba santa,
okay.
the
Yeah.
they're so pretty. They're just like blooming right now. And I was out there just standing it was like a stressful day, and I was just standing there, and these are tall guys. They're like, they're taller than me on it. I mean, I'm short, but like they're like, it's still, they're larger than what I usually see. Um, so when I was there, it's like this enclosed, I don't know, sanctuary, and there's like the shadows of them like on me. And then like I noticed Tishmalum hummingbirds. There was like three of them, just like, it's like if you didn't kind of slow down to look and pay attention, there's just like little guys, they're just sitting there like on the little branches and they're like flying
Oh.
around and like, oh gosh, that's, that's an example. That's one of the things I'm trying to do to find peace or just to stay grounded, and even if it's like 5, 10 minutes,
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be long.
because that's just get like showing again, science is I love to read a lot of scientific articles because I just like the validation. So
Yes.
it's like they're finding being out in nature, it's resetting people. And what you're discussing is just like grounding because you're out in nature. And I
Mhm.
also think it's so I don't know if you're familiar with like the hertz, like healing sound frequencies. Like I know
Not
this
too
is
much.
really woo-woo, but
Go on, go on.
but they are also finding, right, that different things emit a different sound frequency. So and again, this is new what they're researching. Everything working together in nature creates this frequency that they're already in harmony. And when you take yourself, who's frazzled, and you go into that space, it's just like ooh, so that's why I think people who leave the city and come to like here, there's a campground, and they always say the same thing, like, it's so beautiful, it's just what I needed, because they're getting away from the different, like probably unnatural frequencies of the city and
Oh
going
yeah,
into nature, into
yeah.
that space. But anyways, yeah,
Um,
so I think what you said is like beautiful, and
yeah.
I
No, I'm like, shoot, and what frequency am I putting out? Is I'm like, okay, I hope it's not like interrupting anyone, like any of
no,
the birds.
you are the sweetest. I love being around your energy. It's just so calming and like, yes, you are
It's
just
like likewise, same with you, girl. We actually, that reminds me, I hear similar things from people who come to visit our land. They're like, this is, genuinely so beautiful and just I feel so good here and all these things and I don't know if it's because I live here. It's like I don't want to say take it for granted, but it's just like I guess I'm not like, I mean, I'm outside in the city here and there, but like, it really does so much for me. And so it feels really good to hear people like visitors when they say that, though. I'm like, you know what? I'm so glad to hear you say that. And I'm so glad that this land is providing that resetting or that beauty or that sense of calm for you.
okay. So what's next for you?
Next, so I there's a couple Yáamay projects actually that are sort of in the work. So working on a grant with New Village Arts, who they're like a theater in Carlsbad.
Okay.
Great people, and so they came to us with this idea for a project through Calif Arts in California Parks. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Well, I know, yeah, I know that California, I think Art Council too has a bunch of huge grants.
Yeah, they might be associated. I'm not sure, but we're working on a grant for that. And
Ooh.
so these are all kind of outdoor things, combining poetry and California Native women's voices. So that's very thrilling. And then yeah, and then like I think I mentioned earlier, that music video we're working on, also securing grants. Geez, funding is like it's a big thing. It's very much an obstacle, to be honest.
It
But
is. It definitely is. Because I have been applying for grants and I feel like it's such a small pot of money for like all these different people. And I'm just learning about it too. So I'm
yeah,
just like, oh,
same.
this is interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it really does. It's something that is like a potential. I don't want to say a setback, but it complicates things sometimes. But we'll get it. We'll get through.
Yes, you will. You will. Yes, 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 yes. You're gonna do amazing things. So everybody follow along on her journey because it's just gonna skyrocket from here. I know it is. So okay, let's do three rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So, what is your favorite poet? Who's your favorite poet?
Ooh, okay. So I kind of thought about this and I just feel like I can't choose one. I have to shout out California women. So I'm gonna
Yes.
Desiree Wetz, who is a poet in Yáamay, also has an
Oh,
author of Sitting Rock, all
okay.
which you can find through Great Oak Press. And she's a Hachiman. And then there's also Emily Clark, who's Kauai, uh, also an amazing poet who is in Yáamay, and who
Uh-huh.
also you can find her work at the Fire Kinship Museum at
Oh,
the
okay.
Fowler. And Megan Durame, she's Tongva poet, incredible. Also in Yáamay, and I'm sure other places. So yeah, go support their work.
Yeah, so important. I love that you are naming all of these California native poets. I just love it. Okay, so what are you reading right now?
Reading. I am reading two books right now. One is for my book club, and it's our easy breezy summer book. It's called The Haunting Between Us.
Ooh.
It's like a spooky kind of haunted house, throwing in some gay romance.
Uh-huh.
Uh all of that in together. So I'm reading that, and then I'm also reading this nonfiction called Colors of the New World, and it's based on like the Florentine codexes in Mexico and like their use of color and design and like all the pigments and where those came from and the artists involved and yeah.
Oh, that sounds fun. Both of those
Uh,
sound fun.
and I'll send you those titles. You might be into the color one especially.
Yeah. Okay, last quote. I mean, last question, rapid fire question. What is a quote that you live by?
Shoot. Okay. I
Go
did
big or
also
go home? Just kidding.
That's a good one. Always in the belt. No, but I did think a little bit about this one too, and it's just like now that I think about it, I'm like, ugh, I hope this isn't too like I don't want it to be negative, but I also just feel like it's so relevant in life. But it's by James Baldwin and
Okay.
it's people pay for what they do and still more for what they have allowed themselves to become. And they pay for it very simply by the lives they lead. And I just think it's like a reminder of, just the way the energy you put out, if it's gonna be negative, and don't be surprised when life is stressful and hard and people don't want, you know what I mean? It's just like
Yes.
it's just kind of my reminder too of just like shoot, try to just, put out that good energy and not to say like I don't want to be also like a toxic positivity type of person too,
Uh-huh.
because there are moments when you need to act up and,
Yes.
loud and defend yourself or loved ones or whoever. And so I don't know. That's one of those quotes though
I
that I
like it.
to. Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. That's inspiring. It's true. There's that delicate that what's that meme? It's like something like I can be positive, but I can like throw this off real quick and we can
Yeah,
go,
I can
you
pop
know?
off if need
Yes.
be. Yeah, it's always good to think about, balance, balance.
Balance. Yes, 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 exactly. Well, I have enjoyed this time with you so much. You have such a beautiful soul. I just love chatting with you.
Thank you so much for, this platform for Indigenous folks and especially for California Indigenous people. It's so important to, just be inclusive when we can. And yeah, I thank you so much. Noshun Lovik.
Yes. Go out there, check everybody listening, go check out all the artists that she mentioned, and especially by Yáamay. So, all right, talk to you later.